Hey, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being willing to volunteer at DNOW this weekend. You guys are a key part of making this weekend awesome. So, thank you so much for taking the time to prep and be ready for really just loving on the students. We want to kind of clarify something before we get into it. Our small group time, I know sometimes can be used as an extra teaching time, but what we want out of these small group times is to just facilitate discussion. So these guides that you're getting are just guides. They work off of the messages and what we're doing, and they're just there to help prompt conversation. So as you sit through the lessons with everybody and all that kind of stuff, if there's something that sticks out to you and you're like, oh man, we should talk more about that, do that. Okay. We trust you guys to facilitate a time of discussion, but what we really want is a chance for students to digest and apply the truths that they're learning in the messages, and really have some life change come out of this, not just more knowledge. Because knowledge is great, but knowledge without application is dead. It's not real knowledge. And by the way, this is Big Black. He will not be anywhere but in that chair when I'm in here. So I hope he's not distracting as we do this. But I do want to point out, yes, it's a live dog. It's not a weird stuffed toy or anything like that. So anyway, diving right into it. The first night, we're going to be covering the parable of the sower, which Jesus goes into great depth in explaining this, and so we're going to really talk more about application. But when Jesus explains this, he says the seed that's being sown is the gospel. Um, so we're going to spend the first night talking about the gospel. We're going to go over the basic, parable of the sower story, but we're going to spend a lot of our time talking about the gospel. What is the gospel? And break that down for them, and talk about repentance. There's going to be a little activity that we do and all that kind of stuff, and really just kind of do a gospel presentation in a simplistic way that they can understand. Um, and so we're going to go from that. They're going to have an activity, and then they're going to go straight to the scavenger hunts. And then the first discussions actually be at the host homes that night. So it's going to be a callback to the lesson that we had. And the discussion questions, like I said, are just there for discussion. So what stood out to you from the top, from what Brian talked about tonight? Just give them a chance to share something that stuck out, something that they heard, maybe that was different than what they were used to hearing, or something like that. Just give them a chance to talk and let the conversation kind of go where it goes. In your own words, what is the gospel? The point of this question is for them to internalize what the gospel is and to be able to share that with other people. So not necessarily their testimony, but just in their own words, what is the gospel? What's important about this? What's the point of being a Christian? That kind of mentality. Number three, when you mess up, what do you usually do? Do you hide it? Do you blame others, or do you own up to it? And then the follow-up question for that is, what should you do and why? Uh, they're probably going to have a lot to say here. Well, I hide it because I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to, whatever. My parents will kill me, all these different things. And I think it just gives an honest time to say, well, what's actually the best thing long term, not short term? What long term is the best way to handle it? And have a discussion about it. And then four, think about your past. Do you think people hold things against you? And overwhelmingly, I think everyone's going to say yes. And the second part of that question is, do you think God hold things against you? And that's a positive time to talk about the fact that God doesn't hang things over your head. He's not trying to make you feel terrible about it. You can come to Him how you are, and you know you don't have to fix things before you come to Him. You can come to Him broken, and He will be the one that fixes you. This is the conversation point that we want you to be able to have a little bit of a closing moment with this idea in your discussions. So the next morning you'll come back to church. They'll prep for lunch, and then we'll have a short discussion about Jonah, and how he was called to go on mission because of his selfishness, he messed all that up. And we'll go into a little bit of depth on that that morning. But then I'll ask them to go and do a quiet time on their own, and ask them to prepare their hearts for the mission work they're going to be doing today. And then they'll go to discussion groups, and really just want you to ask them about their quiet time. It might be something that's brand new for some people that have never done a quiet time or spent time alone with God at all. And so, what did you think about it? All that kind of stuff. What does serving have to do with the gospel? So connecting the fact that being the hands and feet of Jesus is a way of sharing the gospel through action. Number three, what did Brian say the major problem with Jonah was? Selfishness. Do we have that same problem? Obviously, the answer is yes. And then four, what are you looking forward to at our work sites? What are you not looking forward to? Just let them be honest. And if it's a selfish answer, then great. They're being honest. But help them to get pumped up and ready for the day. And then discussion three is right when they come back. How did you like your work site? What did you do? It's a good time for some feedback there. How did you share the gospel today? What are some other projects we can do? And where do you think God is calling you to serve? So the point of this discussion is to get them thinking about what God is calling them to do and how they can be serving and living out the gospel in their own lives on a personal basis, not just on a corporate basis of what we do with the church. And that'll be the last discussion, but then we'll have some hangout time and some other things. And that afternoon. Then we'll have an activity that last night, which is kind of like a time of affirmation for everybody, where we spend some time doing an activity where we get to say some positive things in written form to each other. Which we'll go in depth with explaining that when we're there this weekend. But it's a good opportunity for you guys to help model what we want the students to do, and for you to be able to speak some things into their lives that are positive and good, and way that you've seen God work in them and stuff like that. So it's going to be a positive time. Some people won't take it seriously. That happens, but for the most part, I'm very excited about this session specifically to get to see that and have them do that. So it'll be a good kind of closer for our weekend, and we're pretty excited about that. We'll have some fun. So thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video, hear a little bit about the messages. You'll have the schedules and the discussion guides. Remember, they're just guides, but they are there to help foster conversation, and that's the goal for this weekend. So thank you guys for serving. We're praying for you and praying for these discussions, and I hope that you guys are praying about this weekend as well. So thanks again, and we're excited. We'll see you this weekend.